Hello. So it is just gone 9 o'clock at night, and it's just getting darker. I'm loving the lighter weather now that it's like nearly summer. I just have so much more time to read, and I wanted to come in and talk about this book. I am here drinking a Pimm's because it's evening and nearly summer, and I preferred this book to Grief is the Thing with Feathers, or Grief is a Thing with Feathers. Yeah, I thought this was more my kind of book than the first one. The first one, I liked Grief is a Thing with Feathers, but it just felt like a husband imagining his wife was dead. Um, so I'd probably have to give it a reread to see how much I really synced with it emotionally. But the first time I thought it was okay, but I didn't think it was, amazing. But this book, well, I mean, I didn't think this book was amazing either, but I thought this book was really fun, and I thought it was um, like imaginative. Some of the writing was really beautiful. You can see how it's like formatted on the page sometimes, and um, he has kind of been labeled or labels himself as like a kind of experimental writer, but I didn't really find it experimental. I mean, the only thing it does is, it kind of resists formatting itself like a normal novel does. But if you can see on like these pages, the formatting does look very standard and traditional. So I didn't think it was really experimental like people herald it as. But I thought it was fun in the way it plays with people's voices. That was the only thing that I thought it was like kind of untraditional in doing. Um, so Lanny is about this like young boy. I think he's maybe like 9 years old, around that age, and it focuses on his family. So his mum and dad, and the novel kind of interweaves between Lanny's perspective, his mum's perspective, his dad's perspective, other people in the village's perspective, and the I guess what you would call the spirit of the village, Papa Tuthwart. It goes through his perspective as well, and because it goes through like the perspective of a spirit, the language can get really strange. I mean, but it's always English, so it's never like unrecognizable words, but it's just like words and sentences that you probably wouldn't normally be able to read unless it was, the perspective of a spirit where you can give them that pass. So that was really enjoyable, really. And there's also an artist in it. Oh my god, what's his name? Pete? Yeah, Mad Pete, they call him. Mad Pete. So he's like the kind of figure of the artist in the novel, and he was like famous. He was once famous like 20 years ago, and now he's kind of, at the tether end of his career, and they just think he's a weirdo. And it's kind of inferred that they think he's like a weirdo for hanging around with Lanny. But in it, Lanny goes missing, and then it becomes a like not a mystery novel, but it's kind of like what happened to Lanny, and then it's going into everyone's perspectives while the boy's missing. But I wouldn't call it a mystery novel because the way he goes missing isn't really like a crime, or it's not complex like that. So I couldn't really call it a mystery or a crime novel. But I guess there is like a mystery element to him going missing. Um, and Lanny's mother is a writer. So she's also a kind of artist. So she gets on with Mad Pete really well. And then Lanny's father is like, I don't know, he does something in finance. So he's like just very, very heterosexual, I guess. Um, So what I liked about the book is that it manages to dive between all these different people's perspectives and still stay true to itself. Like there's one scene where the I don't know what you would call her, not a hag, but she's like the kind of woman at church who always puts herself in like the village newsletter, that kind of thing. The kind of woman who orchestrates all that bullshit. There's a character like her, and she basically doesn't like Lanny's family that much because they're new to the village. So they're like Londoners who've moved out to like a kind of rural, sunny countryside English village. So it's like very middle class, very straight. So I can see why the book has such, wide appeal, because most people are white and straight in the UK. So the cover is really nice, to digress onto that. It's a hardback. Yeah, I do like the cover. And there's just bits that are, because it's like an adult novel but it's about a child, it has the freedom to go into the child's perspective without being a childish book or being like a kind of cringy, what am I doing? A cringy book that like has a child narrator, and it's not a child, it's just, the writer pretending to be a child, and you can kind of feel that because if it's not written that well. But I did feel that Max Porter did the bits from the child's perspective really well. The child just seemed as fun and light as his personality is portrayed by other characters, so I thought that matched really well. There is a scene after he goes missing where the novel like reaches its climax when, everyone's looking for Lanny, he's still not been found, and they're like, what's going to happen? And there's a scene where, well, the latter half of the novel gets like particularly supernatural and, magical realist. But really, I didn't think it was that magical realist. The way some people had reviewed it, I was expecting to be blown away, and I wasn't. I did think the very, very ending of the book was really good. I thought it wasn't too over the top, and it wasn't like really twee. It was just right. I felt like he did a good job on the ending, Max Porter. But leading up to the ending, I thought the novel did feel quite frail. There's a scene where, like, the mum, the dad, like Mad Pete, they're all in the village hall. They all gather in there for some reason, and then they're all kind of like going through a dramatic monologue of, what it would be like if Lanny never turned up again, and basically that they're battling their own demons, and it's just them all doing it at once in one place. It just feels too like theatrical and too kind of unbelievable. So I felt that was kind of where the book wasn't as strong. But aside from that, and that doesn't take up a huge part of the book, so aside from that, I felt the rest of it was really, really good. And it's not too supernatural and over the top. It is only normally, for the most part of the book, it is only like the Papa Toothwort parts where he like just goes from like one field to the next, or like brushes over like crushed Coke cans and sees like just boys being arseholes at the bus stop, kind of stuff like that. So even though he's like a mythical figure, it mixes like a kind of fossilized medieval perspective with like the new modern one. So, and I thought it doesn't do it in too cringy a way. It just pulls it off. So I can give him that, and I'm excited to see what he writes next. So that's my review or thoughts on Lanny. Bye.